Hey everybody, it's Hater. Welcome back to Destiny 2, and I've got a build for you guys today in the form of Handheld Supernova, where you can hit over 80,000 damage in one throw consistently in Season 15, Season of the Redacted. But before we get into it, guys, if you enjoyed the video and this build helps you, go and leave a like, leave a comment down in the comment section, anything I missed or you think would be better. And if you really enjoy the content, go and subscribe, hit the bell to be notified, and go support me over at my Twitch at twitch.tv/HaterTheOne. But yeah, guys, let's get into the video. Starting things off on the 5th of August and the 12th of August, Bungie released two new TWABs that changed a lot of things for Nova Warp. The first of which, on the 5th, was when we got a peek at the buffs coming to Nova Warp itself, where Nova Warp is going to deal 73% more PvE damage, and Handheld Supernova is going to deal double the current damage it does now, which is huge. To put this in perspective, we're going to test the current damage that Nova Warp does to our friendly neighborhood Colossus, Jeffrey. On the first initial hit, when you max out the charge on Nova Warp, it's going to do about 26,045 damage. That's pretty sad, I know. But if you hit him throughout the entire duration of the super, it's going to do about 156,270 damage total, which sounds better. However, it's still mediocre at best because you're spending the entire super to do 150,000 damage and doesn't even kill Jeffrey. After adding up the percentage bonus of 73% to the current damage we have now, Nova Warp is going to look a little bit more better. The first hit instead is going to be dealing 33,077 damage, and over the full course of the super, it's going to do a total of 198,462 damage, or an extra 42,192, which is much nicer. It should be quite better for ad clear, but it's still meh at best to boss DPS. That is where Handheld Supernova comes in, because as I said before, this got a double damage increase of 100%. That is a large buff to an ability, and for good reason, because it did not hit hard at all. Looking at what it does to Jeffrey with no buffs, no nothing at all, this thing's gonna hit for 3,947 times 5, or 19,735 base. That is sad. That is really low. Most kinetic or energy weapons in the game can hit harder than that. But then we can help improve this damage further with an exotic, the helmet Verity's Brow, where right now energy weapon kills will give you death throws, giving you grenade energy and stacking up a 10% damage buff per stack grenade damage, which sounds pretty good because it applies to Handheld Supernova. However, 10% damage really isn't a whole lot. Testing this 5 times on Jeffrey was just saddening to watch, because all it did was increase the damage from 19,735 to 21,705, 23,680, 25,650, 27,625, and 29,600 at max stacks. That is literally only 3,000 more damage than Nova Warp's super damage on one hit. At this point, you probably lost faith or understood why no one uses this subclass in PvE now. It was gutted and mediocre at best. But this is where the fun begins, because after Handheld Supernova received its double damage, it's going to deal 39,470 base without Verity's Brow. And speaking of Verity's Brow, that also received a rework on the 12th. Where instead of getting kills with energy weapons, it's now going to trigger the buff whenever you get a kill that matches your subclass energy type. So void weapons and void heavy weapons will now work with this. It's also going to increase the grenade damage up to 20% from 10% per stack. So at 5 stacks, it's now going to deal 100% more damage. What does this mean for Handheld Supernova on Season 15? Well, if you put in perspective, it's getting already a 100% damage increase, and Verity's Brow is going to give it another 100% damage increase. Now you see where I'm going with this. Instead of 19,735 when we add Verity's Brow, we're going to be adding the new Verity's Brow onto 39,470, so 20% per stack. So at times 1, it's going to deal 47,364 Times 2, it's gonna be 55,258. On times 3, it's gonna be 63,152. Times 4, it's gonna be 71,046. And finally, at max stacks times 5, it's gonna be 78,940. That, my friends, is an 80,000 damage grenade. That is some damn good damage. There are only a few things in this game that can compete with 80,000 damage in one hit like that. That are some of the biggest hitting weapons that we use in current meta PvE. A list to name a few that will beat it: Deathbringer with Catalyst, all projectiles hitting; Falling Guillotine, Crown Splitter; most lasting impression rockets. That is only just to name a few. But when I say this, this is much more crazy than it actually seems, and I'm about to explain why. We've already gone over that you have Verity's Brow. You have to get it to times 5 with any elemental weapon matching your subclass. So get 5 kills, and then you can use the Handheld Supernova, right? Here's the crazy part. You don't lose that times 5 buff when you throw that grenade. Why is that a big deal? It's an almost 80,000 grenade that you get back within 32 seconds at 100 discipline. Without mods, Verity's Brow, perks, and dark matter. 32 seconds for 80,000 damage. I'm about to crack open your whole worldview, because now we're inching towards borderline insanity when we add these buffs to this. All right, so what are these buffs that will be amplifying that 32 seconds? We've already gone over Verity's Brow, which is going to give you constant grenade energy over its 10-second time frame or until it's reset. The other ability is Dark Matter, which is a part of Nova Warp's subclass. Basically, whenever you get a kill with an ability while using Nova Warp or any of its abilities, you're going to get 14% grenade energy back per ability kill. You'll also receive HP, class ability energy, and melee energy on kill. Now, what about mods? First up are going to be the Elemental Well mods that got buffed. The reason we are going to be using these are because in Season 15, Warmind cells also got hit really hard. They practically got gutted. So Elemental Wells are practically going to be replacing those spots, or until we see some kind of new mod that they release. But the two well mods that got buffed are Elemental Armament. You have an increased chance of getting an Elemental Well off of kills that increases per kill. This is now going to increase the chance based on what type of enemy you kill, starting from a minor to a major to a champion, etc. That doesn't really matter too much in this build. The one we're looking at is Font of Might. This is basically high energy fire on crack. The moment you pick up a well, you're going to receive a 25% damage buff that'll last 10 seconds. This is a really good mod to stack on top of the build, but what we're really looking at are the other Elemental Well mods. The first one being Elemental Ordnance. Every time we get a grenade kill, it spawns an Elemental Well. And the other one, Elemental Charge. Picking up an Elemental Well is going to give us a stack of Charge with Light. It's 2 stacks if it matches our subclass. Both of these well mods are what make the build work, because we get a grenade kill, it gives us an Elemental Well. When we pick it up, we're going to gain 10% of all of our abilities because we're matching that element's type. Then we have the 2 stacks of Charged with Light. What do we spend those on? I found that this slot for what you spend the Charged with Light on is usually universal. You can use High Energy Fire here to stack with the damage buffs. You can also use these other 2 mods that'll help you get your grenade back faster or give you your super energy. The first one is Energy Converter. Using your grenade consumes all stacks of Charged with Light to give you your super energy to a max of 50%. The other, Firepower. Using your grenade consumes a stack of Charged with Light and gives you 10 to 15% of your grenade energy back when you throw it. All 3 of these mods are really good that help you experiment with this overall build, but you could also like mix and match other things from the new season when we see the mods from that. And the very final mod to use in this build is Impact Induction, which is solar and goes into your arms. Using your melee attack gives you grenade energy. You can use this every 6 seconds to gain 15% of your grenade back. This combos with Dark Matter and your melee ability. and is probably the best mod in this entire kit alone, because one punch melee kill is going to give you half of your grenade back. Overall though, every single ability and mod in this kit is going to mesh together like worker ants to build a proper build and give you your grenade like every 5 seconds roughly. Because as long as you are picking up your wells, dealing damage and killing things, you are getting your grenade back fast, and you can spend it to do a lot of damage and keep that chain going. Now we got the basis for all the abilities out of the way. What about the weapons that we need to pair with Verity's Brow? To figure out what we're going to be using, we have to take a look at what Bungie showed us for the upcoming champion mods in their most recent tweet. And they're quite shaking up what we need to be using to actually hurt champions. We've got anti-barrier auto rifle, unstoppable linear fusion and fusion rifle, overload bow, unstoppable pulse rifle, unstoppable sidearm, and kind of teased that it was going to be overload sword. So we got quite a bit to work with here. The first of which is going to be the big elephant in the room that probably everybody is going to be using in every GM in season 15. That would be the bow, the Imperial Needle that you'll be earning from Battlegrounds. Why would you want this is the question. It is because it is the only bow in the game that can roll Frenzy. Frenzy, if you don't know, gives you a 15% damage increase, a handling increase, and a reload speed increase as long as you've been in combat for 10 seconds. That, for the same reason, is why the Extraordinary Rendition is so good. But here's the kicker. The bow is also void, which feeds into our build. So 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to be using the Imperial Needle while using this build. What I would look for on it is, of course, Frenzy and Archer's Tempo. Of course, try to get Compact Arrow Shaft for that increased inventory, and then Elastic String for the faster draw time. Remember, faster draw time, the faster you can do damage. And that will cover your overload weapon for the season pretty much. But what about anti-barrier if you're forced to use anti-barrier instead of overload? That's where you have 3 separate options for auto rifles that are void. Or at least until we see any new auto rifles from the new season. All 3 of them being the Reckless Oracle from Garden of Salvation, the Age-Old Bond from the Last Wish Raid, and Gnawing Hunger from World Drop / Gunsmith. All 3 of these are the auto rifles that you can use for this build for anti-barrier. If you're going to use any of them, here are the roles that I would recommend that you would get for all 3 of them. First would be the Reckless Oracle. I would look for something like Autoloading or Mulligan, and then Demolitionist, Swashbuckler, or Kill Clip. But here's the tricky thing. Swashbuckler and Kill Clip rely too hard on getting a kill and in GM scenarios, so that's pretty rough. And then Demolitionist will just counteract autoloading. So realistically, you would want Mulligan, Demolitionist, or autoloading Swashbuckler / Kill Clip. It's also a rapid fire frame auto rifle, so that gets the job done for the barriers. For Age-Old Bond, I would look for something like Triple Tap and High Impact Reserves, just so you don't have any dead perks that have to have kills to work, and will help you in the long run while you're doing your GM or whatever activity you're using it in. It is a slow firing auto rifle, which you have to take in consideration, but overall, it's a good roll. And lastly, Gnawing Hunger, everyone's favorite PvP melting machine gun. It has a very good amount of variety, like Field Prep, Subsistence with Demolitionist, or Subsistence with Rampage or Swashbuckler. You can really not go wrong with this auto rifle, and it's pretty safe if you have one. But if you happen to have the curated roll, which only dropped during the Reckoning when it was around, then you have a phenomenal option with it, where it is Overflow and Rampage at the same time. Overall, you can't go wrong with it, and all 3 of these would be phenomenal choices for your anti-barrier weapon. Yet that leaves out one thing. What about Unstoppable? And I pondered really hard at the idea of having an unstoppable weapon in this arsenal, because it would either fit the kinetic slot or the heavy slot. And a heavy linear fusion rifle isn't really that phenomenal to use for unstoppable, because you're going to use 1 bullet to unstop it, and that's using your already limited ammo economy. Then I looked to the kinetic slot and found that the exotic fusion rifle, Bastion, could fit this role. For those who don't know, or have not played PvP, Bastion is a 3-round burst slug fusion rifle in the kinetic slot that recently got a change where its slugs will now unstop champions for free. You don't even have to use the mod, which it's going to be a 6 cost mod in the first place, so it's going to be terrible for your arms or class item wherever they put it. But overall, that fits your needs for your unstop weapon being in your kinetic slot, your anti-barrier and your overload weapon in your energy slot. But what about your heavy? Realistically, you can use whatever you like in this slot, but I know people like Esoteric are going to be soloing things, so you are eventually going to be using an overload sword to fit this need, so that you are covering anti-barrier, unstoppable, and overload at the same time if you need to. But as far as swords go, you are not getting close to the champion before its prerequisites are met to damage it, which leaves out only 2 swords in the game that are capable to overload champions from afar. That's going to be the Temptation's Hook and the Soulless Scar from Trials of Osiris. Both of these are caster frame swords, meaning that when you press the right click on them, it's going to launch a projectile at the enemy. And if you're looking for a specific roll on them, I would recommend getting Relentless Strikes on both of them, and then Vorpal Weapon on both of them. Or if you have Soulless Scar with a really good roll, get Chain Reaction. You'll be able to AoE much more adds with it. And boom, there's your loadout. You can also take off, of course, the Bastion for other things, and then have your heavy slot open. But it all comes down to what you plan on running, and I hope that this build really helped you guys out with experimenting Nova Warp in Season 15. But yeah, guys, that's going to be covering the video for today. I worked really hard on this. I worked out all the damage crunching, all the exotics, what to use. But of course, we don't know what the new stuff in the artifact is going to be. So this could be prone to changes. I will be leaving a comment pinned in the comment section if there's anything that I do plan on changing in the build. But yeah, guys, quick heads up that me and Malfinic are going to be on a bit of a short break. There's still going to be videos releasing that are lined up for the 2 or 3 weeks that he's going to be out moving. None of the stuff is going to be planned for current season, season 15, until he is basically back in working shape. But yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.